Hey everyone, this is Mike. Earlier this week, Ishgard Restoration in Final Fantasy XIV got its first big update, so I thought today we would talk about it a bit. Also give you some kind of an introduction on how everything works. So in the first half of the video, just gonna be showing you how everything works, where you can get the rewards, what you wanna do, that kind of stuff. And then in part 2 of the video, I'll just be talking about my kind of thoughts on this piece of content and how gathering and crafting has changed a bit going into Shadowbringers, my opinions on that kind of stuff. So first of all, how does the new Ishgardian restoration work, so to speak? Well, you're still going to be acquiring those Skybuilder scripts, which if you go over here to this NPC for script exchange, you still have your glamour that you can buy over here, but if you go to others, you can see that there is quite the list that you can get, from materia, which is going to be really good, to also a bunch of new minions, as well as some mounts over here, so you can get those. And then when we go over the NPCs over here, this is where you trade in your collectibles. But this time around, when you are trading in your collectibles, you are awarded Skyward points. This is for the ranking system, and you also get Kupo stamps. Now, every time that you trade in one new collectible, so I'll just trade in one right now because I still have one left over, you're going to be getting a stamp. And every time that you fill out a full Kupo card, you're going to be getting one Kupo card. So you go to Lisbeth over here. For example, I still have one voucher remaining because I already did 5 crafts before this. So I just traded in Kupo of Fortune, da-da-dum, and there you go. As you can see, I got a Parasol, a minion, some planet clusters, and some other stuff over here as well. So basically, every time that you trade in those collectibles, you're going to be working towards a stamp card for your Kupos. So every 5 crafts, you're basically going to be getting a stamp card, and then you just trade it in, and some kind of like a loot box, I guess you could call it. But yeah, so that's basically how you award these. These big ones at the top, they reward a lot of Skyward points. These are the new expert recipes. These are incredibly hard crafts that cannot be macroed. You need to do these manually. You will also need quite a lot of stats when it comes to like having your crafters geared and that kind of stuff. So these are going to be very difficult. Gonna need to be done manually as well. But in my opinion, kind of useless if you're not going for like the rankings and that kind of stuff. But I'll talk about those later on. Now, to do all of these recipes, I'll just pull up my thingy real quick over here. This is, for example, the one that I was crafting. To do these, you need approved grade 2 Skybuilders materials, which are these 3, and all of the recipes also require 1 normal material. So the best way you can go about this is when you are gathering for these material in the diadem, you basically send your retainer out to go gather for that other item that you still need on the 1-hour venture or 40-minute venture, something like that. So that's kind of how that works. Now, to get these approved thingies, you go over here on these 2 NPCs, and we have the mission commander, which will travel you to the diadem, which I'll show some gameplay of in just a second. Basically, the diadem, the way it works right now, is it's just a very big gathering hub. You can go both miner, fisher, or botanist in there, and you just go in there to gather stuff. Now, the way I did it, for example, is I went for specific stuff. So, for example, since I was going to be making the bed, I was just looking for these 3 materials, and that was it. Now, of course, there are going to be way more materials than just those 3 inside the diadem, and these will all still award you points and Skybuilder scripts, so you can still gather random stuff. But then once you open a node and you find one of those 3 materials in there that you need, then go for those specific materials. Now, once you've gathered enough, for example, I went for 60 of each, then you can come out and then you go to the resource inspector, and then you can open up your inventory and then, for example, say, oh, I want to like a price, whatever it's called, inspect these materials. Then you just trade them in there, you click request inspection, and then you get your stuff approved. So as you can see right now, I have an approval seal on these materials. If you just want to auto submit everything, you can just throw auto submit. This will throw all of your stuff in there, and then you can see how many scripts you get, how many seasonal score you get as well. There are special nodes inside the diadem, which I'll show some gameplay of as well, that I'm not quite sure how they spawn. Like, I've just been gathering and then randomly the weather changes and then those special nodes spawn. Those will give you increased seasonal score as well as script and that kind of stuff, so you can kind of go after those as well. So I'm just gonna auto submit all of my stuff real quick, and then as you can see, I am getting all of my stuff approved now. So that's kind of how that works. You can either auto-submit, or you can just, of course, request the inspection of the few that you do need. As you can see over here, these are from these special nodes, these 3 of them. We do need to get stuff in packs of 10. So as you can see, for example, I have 50 approved, 5 not approved, and that is because they get approved in stacks of 10. So when you're looking at all of that stuff, make sure you gather in pairs of 10. As you can see in the gathering, or like in the crafting one, you also need 10 per craft. So that's kind of how that works. So if you're saying, for example, I want to make 7 stuff, make sure you have 70 of each. And then you also won't be wasting inventory space, because as you can see, I now have like 2 of each and that kind of stuff. So that's why specifically inspecting stuff can also kind of save you some inventory space, because this piece of content takes up a crap load of your inventory. So that's kind of how this works. Go over to the lady with the collectibles over there, see what you need to gather, then come over here, go into the diadem, gather those specific materials in stacks of 10, then go to the resource inspector to get your materials approved, and then go into the crafting section, craft your collectibles, trade your collectibles in, get your Kupo stamps, and then get your Sky Builder scripts as well to get the rewards. And that's pretty much how this works. I'll also leave a link in the description to a Reddit thread where you can see a macro, a 1-button macro to 0 to 100% all of the level 80 crafts with very minimal requirements really, because the normal level 80 crafts are definitely not that hard, don't require a lot of gear at all. It's mainly the expert recipes that require a lot of stuff for you. So that's kind of how that works. I kind of forgot to record the gathering portion of this video because I thought I was recording, forgot to hit record unfortunately enough, so I can't show you the crafting stuff, but just know that the link in the description to the Reddit thread, it works. I've done 6 crafts with it and I got all of them HQ. The only way, or HQ to 100%, the only way it would not go from 0 to 100 is if you hit a pour on your finisher, but outside of that you should be able to hit your 100% collectability pretty much all of the time. There will just be 1 or 2 crafts maybe if you do get unlucky. So that's how the Ishgardian restoration works. Now let's talk about what I think of this piece of content. So personally, I think it's really good. The diadem has always really been in a very weird place. It now being repurposed as a gathering hub I think is pretty good, and just being like kind of tied together with the Ishgardian restoration kind of gives it its place as well. So I think what they did with the diadem is a good thing. When it comes to the crafting stuff of this, I think it's pretty good as well, because right now basically everyone can contribute to this restoration, get the materials, get the reward structure and that kind of stuff. And it's both for people that want to gather casually, kind of like I do, because I'm really not into crafting and gathering at all. I just do it to get my savage gear done and then food and potions and that kind of stuff. But when it comes down to your normal crafting recipes, a lot of the hardcore crafting crowd was left kind of in the dark. It's kind of how I like to kind of look at it from a raiding perspective as well, because back in Heavensward, when they released Creator Savage was a lot easier than something like Gordius or Midas, and a lot of raiders were like, or a lot of hardcore raiders I should say, were kind of disappointed with this, because they're like, well, I want my raids to be hard, and that's why in Stormblood they gave you the ultimate raids. So Savage now is a little bit easier than it was before, meaning that there's a lot more people that will get into the raiding scene, and then for the real hardcore people you still have ultimate. Now when it comes down to crafting and gathering, over the course of Shadowbringers it's become a lot easier as well, and I think that the expert recipes when it comes down to like the normal crafting stuff has never been this easy, and it makes it so that a lot more people it's basically become a lot more accessible, so a lot more people can craft that food and potions. They don't need to rely on friends, they don't need to buy it from the market board, which I think is a very positive thing for the player base as a general. Like, of course, those people that are really into crafting will make less money from selling stuff on the market board, but on the other hand, I do think it's a lot more healthy when other people can just make their stuff themselves. And for me personally, as someone that wants to be self-sufficient, I'm pretty happy with that. Of course, it does make it so that people that were really into crafting, that wanted crafting to be a challenge, were kind of left in the dark, and that is where Ishgardian Restoration is like, well, we have these new expert recipes that need to be manually crafted, we have new special procs, like for example sturdy, planed I'm not entirely sure, but there's basically a bunch of different, what's it called again, like statuses that your craft can have. Like, for example, in a normal craft, you can have good, excellent, and poor, but on these new expert recipes, that are only for Ishgardian Restoration, by the way, they have these extra statuses that they can have as well, like, for example, reduced CP cost, increase in the like success chance, so you can use those stuff like rapid synthesis or hasty touches that normally have a very low percentage to success, and now are, I think it's like 100% success, or at least very close to 100%. So it makes it so that you can use those actions as well, which I think is really cool. And for the people that really want to have a challenge when they craft, these expert recipes will be right up your alley. Now, what I have kind of an issue with these expert recipes is that you don't really get many rewards back from it. So it is a pretty difficult thing to do if you want to just mass craft stuff to get Skybuilder script. You're basically going to be better off crafting the level 80 stuff rather than the expert stuff, because you're going to be able to make many more level 80 crafting recipes or like crafting collectibles by the time that you're able to finish those expert crafts, because the expert crafts take a lot more time. The level 80 stuff can be done in a one button macro. Of course, it will take a little bit longer for you to gather all the materials that you need, but still it is going to be a lot faster to craft. So yes, the expert recipes are more efficient when it comes to gathering stuff and then crafting it. You also get a fuck ton more points when it comes down to the ranking system. So if you want to go for those like rank 1, rank 2 places on the ranking, then sure, expert recipes are going to give you a whole lot more as well. But there's nothing else in there for those people. For example, if I go back to the ultimate comparison, when you complete an ultimate raid, you are awarded shiny weapons and a title. When you complete an expert recipe, you don't really get anything other than just a little bit more points on the ranking board and some extra Skybuilder script. So it would be really cool if maybe, say for example, do 10 expert recipes, you get a cool title, 100 expert recipes, maybe you get a shiny weapon or something like that, or a shiny tool, I guess you could say, or something more aching towards some glamour or stuff like that as well, kind of like they did for the ultimate raid. So that's kind of my opinion on that whole thing. I do think it's really good that it's there for people that want a challenge, but it would be really cool if those people also get some kind of a reward for doing so, because the recipes are a lot harder and take a lot more time for you to basically finish them and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. That's how the Ishgardian Restoration works. I think it is a pretty cool piece of content. I'm probably not really going to be doing it too much outside of getting the mounts and the minions and that kind of stuff, but once I have all of those, definitely not really a piece of content that I'm just going to be doing all the time. But outside of that, I do think it's a pretty good thing for people that are really into crafting and gathering to now have their own piece of content. And then when it comes down to the challenging aspect of crafting, you have your expert recipes, which I think is a really good thing as well. But that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. I hope it was helpful. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.